Welcome back, and this will be a reading of With a Card Up His Sleeve, What Could He Achieve? By The Earth, the Wind, the Flame. Summary. Inspired by Cards on the Table by Westland, I highly recommend checking it out. Tim Drake's parents died in a freak accident that killed the royal family. Coincidentally, they also committed tax fraud. When they left, Tim was let alone in Gotham. He spent some time on the streets before deciding to get a legal identity. Oh, also, he plays a lot of poker and wins, and owns a casino. The Bat family are concerned about a new casino that seems to be a perfect playground for a rogue. The owner is said to be terrifying, but he looks like he's 14. What's up with that? Chapter 1. Prologue. Sometimes Tim allowed himself to think about what his life could have been had his parents not died. Maybe he would have grown up in a grand manor in Bristol, had his parents not faked their deaths, loved and supported. Maybe he would be a rich, spoiled kid, the kind that only the Gotham elite create and ruin. Maybe, in another universe, his parents brought him with them. But this was not an alternative universe, and his parents were, in fact, presumed dead when they faked their own deaths after committing white-collar crimes so bad that their only option was to flee the country. So he put on his fakest customer service smile and asked the person in front of him for their coffee order. The world thought that Timothy Jackson Drake was dead, alongside his parents, in a freak accident that caused the lodge they were staying at to go up in flames. It was a tragic accident, they said. No one could have predicted it, he heard. The rest of the Gotham elite mourned him in a distant way you mourn someone you never knew, or in this case, disliked. His parents fled, and Tim fell. Slipped through the cracks, slept behind dumpsters, in the twisting arms of Robinson Park, in shelters that smelled like bleach and despair. He ended up in an orphanage run by the nuns of the St. Mary Cathedral. See, he could have stayed at the orphanage. It was one of the few non-corrupt ones, not acting as a cover for a mob or human trafficking. However, he couldn't live there forever, and really, religion wasn't his thing. There, of course, were more children than food, and sometimes he had to share his food or go hungry. And he had to do chores. And punishment was hard hits with the cane, but it was still one of the best that Gotham had to offer. Of course, he hadn't known that when he first arrived, but even newly orphaned and half-feral Tim was smart. The nuns asked him for his name when he first showed up on the doorsteps, and he gave them a fake one. When he ran away at the ripe age of 11 and a half, an alert went out. Not for any Tim, but for a 12-year-old Alvin Draper. Of course, after that, there were more. A new name for every shadow he slipped into. A concerned parent thought that he met a happy, joyous kid named Xander Green. To a young policeman, he was William Young, a shy kid who wanted to be a doctor. For a salesman, he was Justin Davis, and there were so many more. And after so many years, Timothy, Alvin, Alex, Will, Justin, Tim were presumed dead. Kids didn't survive in Gotham. That was a fact. But Tim didn't mind. He was a ghost. Before he was actually presumed dead, he drifted alone in Drake's manor, and during galas in front of flashing lights. He had mastered the art of not being seen. Much like ghosts could only be seen if you knew they existed. He ignored the fact that he was forgotten, the way only ghosts were. He ignored the fact that some ghosts were remembered more than he was. He forcibly pushed any thoughts of Timothy Drake and Alvin Draper out of his mind as he told the person that their older total was $750. At 12, for a kid who was legally dead twice over, his life was great. He's been on the street for a while, before he finally got some cash by pickpocketing tourists and the like, and living near the Gotham library dumpster. The library was one of the few places where he could truly relax and not look out of place. And occasionally, 12-year-old Tim swiped a few things from the rich assholes who really didn't need it. He very rarely stole electronics. They were messy. But when he saw a camera lazily hanging off of a random tourist's shoulder, he just had to have it. When he got close enough to hear the guy, he figured out the guy must be from Metropolis, visiting Gotham for whatever reason. The Metropolis thing really made him both not want the camera, since it was from Metropolis, too clean, too hopeful, and also made him want to take the camera, just to stick it to the guy. He ended up taking it. The great thing about Gotham was that nobody questioned why a 12-year-old who was probably homeless had a camera worth $4K. Another reason he took the camera was sentiment. Before the death of Timothy Drake, he used to follow, stalk, the bats. When the night came, Tim went out, and to his delight, Batman hasn't switched up his route too much. He followed Batman the whole night, and developed the photos in a decaying dark room. The next day, he walked right to the Gotham Gazette and sold the one good picture he had of the new Robin, and walked out with enough money to take a shot at gambling. A fun fact about Tim was that he liked statistics and close odds. Before Tim Jane existed, he had been a lonely kid in a manor with too much time to spare, and a deck of cards. He learned to play and shuffle and cut cards, and then he learned poker. And after that, he learned the sleights of a hand needed to win. So, as any 12-year-old would with newly accounted money, he had gone to Crime Alley. Another fun fact about Tim was that he was great at pissing people off. He overheard some guys playing cards and betting, and he hatched a plan. He got close enough for them to hear, and then loudly and colorfully announced how shit they were at playing poker. Naturally, this got their attention, but instead of challenging him to join, they unfortunately looked more ready to beat him up. Finally, when his instincts started screaming, he ran away. But that was where it started. Game after game, he played and earned. Each night, patrons of the clubs he visited would ask for his name like some sort of fare. And every night, he would concoct new things to tell them. Once he was Jackson, and that was the closest he ever got to telling someone the truth. Since his main source of income was bat watching, and on some nights playing cards with obnoxious adults in Crime Alley, he was practically free during the day. When he was 13, the only thing he really wanted and needed money for was his camera and for food. So he never focused on it. Instead, he used to hole up with a book, Perks of Living Near a Library, and read. He read anything: computer science, mythology, hacking, medicine, fairy tales, anything that made him harder, more impossible to catch. Again, broken out of his thoughts, he looked to find another customer in front of him. He smiled blandly at her, but she didn't smile back. Oh, great, a Karen. What can I get for you, madam? What can I get for you today, ma'am? My coffee order? What's wrong? What's your name? Tom, Again, he contemplated quitting. But Tim Jane needed a quiet paper trail that no one would follow. Chapter 2 Interlude 1 The Poker Table. The room smelled of sweat, dirty money, and cheap alcohol. One of Crime's Alley's many overcrowded backrooms were loud. Too loud, but Tim didn't flinch. He never did. He sat across from three grown men and one off-duty cop who mistaken him for a lucky kid. It was going to cost them. The cards were worn, so were the men. They laughed too hard like people who've forgotten what real joy tasted like an average Gothamite would after one too many rogues attacks. One of them called him kid, maybe like a warning, but Tim didn't flinch. He loved math, probability, the slick satisfaction of stacked odds, and he loved poker, the quiet war of expressions, the tells, the lies. He counted the cards like he was born doing it. They let him shuffle, which was their first mistake. He let them win a few rounds, let them think they were smarter than they were. Then, slowly, the tide turned. Full house, straight flush, the chips pile grew. They started calling him names. Some were kind, most weren't. But they kept playing because they wanted to win back what they lost. And Tim? He just wanted to keep taking. By the end of the night, they're broke. He was gone, and in the end, that was what he was. A dead boy with too many names. Chapter 3 Interlude 2 The Fight. It happened fast. Everything in Gotham did. He got jumped on the walk back to the library. Just another kid walking too slow through the wrong alley. One moment, he was thinking about the next casino, the next bluff, the next move. Then, crack. Ribs, definitely. He wasn't sure how many. He didn't remember falling, just the impact. The wet snap of his shoulder hitting pavement. The sudden metallic buzz of adrenaline drowning out thoughts. There was blood. He could taste it. Iron and copper on his tongue. There were three of them. Big, older, laughing. He didn't run. Not anymore. He fought with everything. With fists that didn't know how to stop, he hit back over and over, teeth bare like something feral. Pain was distant. Noise. Nothing mattered, except the heat curling in his gut. The eyes lacing his spine. He fought until the ward tilted sideways. He fought until their laughs turned into gasps. Until the crunch of cartilage under his knuckles finally sounded like peace. He left one of them crying, gasping, one of them unconscious, one of them bleeding from a shattered nose. Then he walked away, limping, drenched in someone else's blood, and finally, felt settled. He came back to his dumpster, and it was gone. Not physically, no. The metal bin sat there, but the word he had painstakingly carved around it, the blankets, books, scraps of stolen warmth, was smashed, disintegrated. His word ruined. Tim didn't feel rage like fire. It never had. His anger didn't burn. It froze. It seeped into the marrow of his bones and whispered revenge. He found out who did it easily enough. Penguin, mostly muscle, looking for a kid who had outsmarted the big man in charge at cards. The security footage confirmed what his instinct already knew. That night, he didn't go to the alley with a couple $100 for chips. Didn't look for a familiar dark blob against Gotham skyline and the accompanying flash of colors and joy. Instead, he hunted. They left behind a mess. It was their fault. The damage was done by a club or some other blunt object, and the attacker was left-handed. The men were penguins, and some local security cams revealed that the leader was Freddy Paulus. But Tim wasn't dumb. Why would he go after the muscle when he could go after the brain? Hacking into Bat's computer was easy. Finding Penguin after knowing his MO for so long was easier. He didn't go after the grunt. He went after the man who ordered the hit. Not a scream, not with fire, but with strategy and a knife that knew exactly where to land. He didn't kill him. He didn't have to. Penguin didn't speak Tim's name after that. No one did. Not unless they wanted trouble. That was the night he stopped running. That was the night he became something else. He never knew hearing someone scream could be so satisfying. Penguin's particular brand of villainy was knowledge. Blackmail, to be specific. But Tim knew more perks of being a stalker. Tim, one, universe, well, a million, but hey, who cares? After that incident, not many people boarded him for some odd reason, but he finally invested in a legal identity, and Tim Jane was born. Jane, to honor his mother, who taught him everything he knew about keeping a mask. He relocated to near Gotham General Hospital and got an apartment. In the night, he stalked the bats occasionally and played in casinos. And in the day, he worked as a barista, only for the free coffee. He clocked out of the coffee shop at 3:45. The woman who yelled at him about almond milk would forget his face by morning. That was the goal. Today, he was heading to the tables behind the old fortune teller. See, Tim owned those tables. Well, calling them tables was an understatement. They were more akin to Penguin's iceberg lounge, but better, obviously. On the surface, it was Vegas Real, a gaudy building teetering on the edge of Bristol and Old Gotham, perfectly positioned to intercept those coming or going from high society events, or church, an ordinary casino, or as ordinary as anything in Gotham can be. It was frequented by Gotham elite, who often came to play a game or five before passing by the red light district, though this has reduced significantly after Red Hood's debut. However, expensive wine and gambling weren't the only reason they came to Vegas Real. The other reason was Tim. Tim was the devil in the charge of the casino, and instead of just dealing in cash, he dealt in secret as well. Of course, club regulars knew that there wasn't anything that he didn't already know. There was a tish, and one they always paid, whenever they wanted to or not. Today was Brucey Wayne Hallow Eve party, and he knew that the club would be full tonight. The Halloween ball was being held on 28th, as events held on 31st were likely to be crashed by some rogue or the other. But that didn't excuse Tim. No, he had a good 5 hours before he would be expected to show his face at the club, and he intended to use it. Last week, when Mr. Gladius had been 3 rounds and 5 bottles in, he had let slip that rumors of Crowny Hare investing in drug trade had been making rounds. Investigation was done, and lo and behold, he was shipping in a new drug and distributing it. Interesting, considering that Mr. Crown's first wife had died of overdosing herself. Very interesting. other than the Frontex gang had been decimated in an overt act of violence by some red-haired fanatics after the Frontex tried to kill her during a shootout. And Mr. Clay had been caught with a new mistress in contact with Penguin, which he would need to investigate. The most concerning of matters was that after 27 years of working in background, the Gotham Mafia had just made a move. Falcone's men were sniffing around business at the edge of Vercelli territory. Neither would bother them. He was sure of that. But if the remaining Frontex retaliated against Red Hood directly, then the Falcone would identify weakness and act upon it. How he would do so was yet to be known. The security cams didn't help in that matter, so he pushed it to the side. As long as nothing happened before the gala tonight, he should be fine. On to the fun part, late nights with bats. He needed to go undercover at the gala tonight, but he had connections, blackmail on the owner, with the service company that Brucey Wayne had commissioned. Of course, it would be rather easy to go as a server, but it wouldn't give him the access to the exact conversation he needed for long. He could bag the table, but with all legally alive bats attending, it would be rather hard. No, he needed something better, and unfortunately, he had just the thing. Card tables. He could even arrange Uno for the kids. That was definitely a bad idea, and it would lessen the flow of patrons to the club. But he could learn so much. Damn it, why was this his life?